There was a positive psychologist. He actually taught his last class last semester. He was my mom's professor at Penn in the 70s, and he's still been teaching. And his name is Professor Marty Seligman. He says like this: suppose you could be hooked up to a hypothetical experience machine that for the rest of your life would simulate your brain and give you any positive feelings you desire. Most people to whom I offer this imaginary choice, says most, not all. Most people whom I offer this imaginary choice refuse the machine. Why?
Wow.
It is not just positive feelings we want. We want to be entitled to our positive feelings. We want to have earned our positive feelings. Yet, we have invested myriad shortcuts to feeling good.
This is The Dilemmas on Screen, a Jewish perspective podcast, where we take ambiguous moral situations in fictional popular movies and TV shows and analyze them from a Torah lens. As a quick introduction, Neo is the hero of the Matrix, and he is a computer programmer. Neo is puzzled by repeated online encounters with the phrase The Matrix. This leads Neo to a whole introduction with Trinity and Morpheus, who are the heroes and the antagonistic agents, and their superhuman abilities. In turn, this leads to the scene where Morpheus presents Neo with the now famous dilemma: blue pill or red pill? The blue pill. If Neo chooses this pill, he will remain in the world as he knows it and forget all the bizarre experiences he's been having. This choice represents comfort, ignorance, and the continuation of a life lived within the boundaries of illusion without knowledge of the true nature of existence. The red pill. If Neo takes this pill, he will wake up to the harsh, unsettling truth of reality, that Neo's life up until now, and the life for most of humanity, is a simulated reality created by machines to keep humanity enslaved. The red pill symbolizes knowledge, freedom, and the willingness to embrace the painful and difficult truths of life, even if it means giving up the comforting falsehoods. Towards the end of the movie, Cypher, one of Morpheus' crew members, ends up betraying Morpheus' crew. This is first foreshadowed in a conversation Cypher has with Neo, when Cypher says, "You know, I know what you're thinking, because right now I'm thinking the same thing. Actually, I've been thinking it ever since I got here. Why, oh why, didn't I take the blue pill?" In a later scene, Cypher meets with Agent Smith to plan Cypher's betrayal of Morpheus, namely, letting the agents capture Morpheus, and during which Cypher starts killing members of the crew. In exchange, Cypher will be plugged back in the Matrix and have his memory wiped clean. In other words, the blue pill choice. With that, we have a few questions we'd like answered. 1. If one of us replaced Neo, what would the Torah advise us to do? Do we take the red pill or the blue pill, and why? 2. A person might ask, just as Cypher pointed out when he betrayed Morpheus, what does it mean to have a real life? The Matrix felt real. It sent nerve impulses to my brain. What's the issue? What makes something real? This question is highlighted by Cypher and his regret taking the red pill. But Cypher has a point. You have the option between a nice, normal life. True, it's not real, but it feels real. In actual reality, Cypher is constantly uncomfortable and scared and running. What kind of life is that? What difference does it make if he ultimately lives in illusion and his body ages and dies? I think if you were to present many people with two options, option A, live a comfortable, very nice life, or option B, live an uncomfortable life, constantly on the run, cold, eating disgusting food at constant risk, but hey, it's true, it's real, they would choose option A. And they tell you, look, you can keep your reality. If my brain is telling me good, I'm going with that option. To clarify, if Cypher was able to get his way and re-enter the Matrix without killing the entire crew or sabotaging their mission, can he do that? Is there something wrong with it? Eat, drink, and be merry. Why does it have to be real? And then 3, why does taking the red pill have to be irrevocable? If someone changes their mind, why can't you just program a person to be represented with the option of blue pill or red pill, take the blue pill, and just reinsert him to the Matrix and wipe his memory clean? These are some of our questions. Let's see what the Torah has to say. I am excited to welcome Rabbi Rick Fox to this episode to answer our questions. Rabbi Fox is the executive director of Maor Penn, which is a Jewish outreach organization servicing the Jewish community at the University of Pennsylvania as campus chaplain, educator, and mentor. A graduate of the Wharton School of Business at Penn with a minor in music, Rabbi Fox began his career in marketing consulting even as he remained an avid musician. While on sabbatical in Israel, Rabbi Fox developed a passion for Jewish education, eventually returning to teach Jewish students at his alma mater in 2015. Rabbi Fox resides in Philadelphia with his wife and 4 children. His wife, Rivka Fox, is an active shadchanit, i.e. matchmaker, and founder of Blind Fate, a dating platform for Jews all over the world. You can find Rabbi Rick Fox online on his podcast, So, What Does Judaism Say About... ... which is available on Spotify, Apple Music, and Amazon, and on Instagram at Rabbi Rick Fox. You can find his wife, Rivka Fox, on Instagram at Rivka Fox. Please find links to all of the above in the description below. Hey, Rabbi Rick, thank you so much for joining us.
Ophir, it's amazing to be here. Been thinking about this, dreaming about this for a while.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, so let's launch right into this. Okay, so we're in the world of the Matrix. You have the blue pill, you have the red pill. What would the Torah advise you to do? How would we approach this?
Okay, so for those who don't know, The Matrix was one of the mind-bending films that was released in 1999. Right when the panoramic 3D cameras that they use in the NFL now, those were just coming out. And it was, did you see it in the theaters?
I actually didn't. I saw it at home.
You're too young. Okay, fine. So I saw it in the theaters. Okay, it was unbelievable. And it's one of those films that makes you think. Because the scenario is essentially that AI, sophisticated machines have taken over the world, and they have created a computer program that they run in your brain, that every single human being is now being harvested for our electromagnetic energy. And you're in like a coma, and they have you in a simulation that looks and feels like the world in 1999. Okay?
Wow. And I'm assuming this is also crazy because this is like the advent of the internet.
Yes. Yeah. So this is right at the tail end of, you know, that golden age of the 90s that I grew up in. I don't know the decade you grew up in, but I'm a 90s boy, right? And this was kind of like, whoa, we never thought about how far. I mean, the Terminator came out in the 80s, which was the beginning of, you know, really machines and how far they can be pushed. So the question is, so what happens is in this simulation, this character played by Keanu Reeves sort of has a moment where he's like, wait a minute, this all might not be real. This all might not be real. And he starts to sort of investigate and do his research. And there's a team of people who have discovered that this thing called the Matrix is not real. And they find him in the simulation and they present him with the opportunity. Do you want to wake up from this dream? Do you want to wake up from this false reality and join our team in reality? Now, he doesn't know what reality looks like. He's living in this simulation. So they offer him the blue pill, which is go back to sleep. You'll wake up, you go back to your tech job and your little thing, whatever. And the red pill is you wake up, you will wake up literally in the real world, which is going to be a harsh awakening. It's been utterly destroyed. There is nothing there. They live on like these little ships. And, you know what I mean? So the question is, the question you had is a beautiful question. What would the Torah advise? Would the Torah in that situation advise that you accept reality, however harsh it is? Or do you continue to live in a manufactured dream world because it is easier? You could say, the question is ignorance bliss? You know, we'll take that Men in Black pill or a thing and wipe away the memory and you go back. Is that ideal?
I actually think that's what Cypher asks. He's like, you know, in hindsight, ignorance is bliss. I don't care that this steak is fake because it tastes good. That's all I need.
Right. So we have to come back to Cypher to understand like where he's coming from. And he says, Cypher, the bad guy, you know, it's a question. How bad is he? But he, you know, his question is like, he's like, I don't want to wake up ever again. I don't want to remember nothing. And I want to be rich, the whole thing. Now, he's trusting machines who have no, like, do you see what I'm saying?
Right. I guess that's crazy when you think about that.
Right. So as it, you know, it's like, yeah, sure, we'll do that. Like, how does he know he's not going to wake up like in some hell that they created for him just because they're machines, they don't care?
Right. Zero empathy. It's not like they feel bound by their promises. What are you going to do? Bring them to court?
Right. What court? Right. So the answer is, it's very complex. I think that we can take a look. There's a piece of Talmud in Erevin that this debate was debated between the two greatest sages of Mishnaic times, between those years, right before BC, right after BC, but this is right around the time of the temple's destruction. You have Shammai and Hillel arguing about this. The Talmud says they argued about this for 2.5 years.
Wow.
Okay, you and I are going to talk about this for like a half an hour. Okay? Okay? So listen to this. This is what it says. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, for 2.5 years, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, these are the students of those academies, debated the question. These would say it would have been more pleasant for a person not to have been created than have been created. And the other side said, no, it is more pleasant for a person to have been created than not been created. So the words in Hebrew are, right, it's Omrim Noach lo la'adam shelo nivra. Is it more Noach? Is it more restful? It's a funny word. Doesn't mean better. It's a funny word. Or is it more Noach that he was created? So I think that really sort of puts the debate into the proper area. It's not asking morally, do you have to be created? Because it's saying, would it be more pleasant? Is it a better experience having been created or not been created? Which I think casts a much more complex light onto it. This is not Kantian philosophy of like, we can't ever tell a lie. And, it's a very different way of pleasant. How do they come out, by the way, at the end of the debate?
So better to not be created.
That's what it says. It says it would have been more pleasant not to have been created.
Nice. Got it.
Okay. And then but it says, listen to this. Achshav shenivra, but what can I do? I've been created. Now that I'm created, how do I deal with reality now? And this is the question that Neo was presented with in the Matrix.
Hang on, wait. So what does it say? So now that I've been created, so what?
That's a great theoretical debate. It's very nice to be theoretical. You've been created. It's an irrelevant question. Took him 2.5 years, right? So here we are. We've been created. So here's Neo. Neo is like, okay, maybe I would have never liked to have been put in the Matrix. Maybe I would have never liked to have whatever. But here I am. So now that I'm here and I'm given these 2 pills, what exactly is the right thing to do? What do you say, Ophir? What's better?
Now that I've been created.
What's more pleasant? Let's look at it from what does the Torah tell you? What would the Torah tell you to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So here I was thinking I was asking the questions, but what you're presenting is good.
I'm a teacher, Ophir. I'm a teacher. Okay,
fair enough.
I guess
Torah. It's Jewish teaching.
They call it the Socratic method. It's not the Socratic method. It's the Talmudic method.
It's the Talmudic method. That's right.
What do you say? I'll give you my answer, but what do you say?
So I would say, again, based on the way it said it, so if you had not existed, the Matrix would have been better. Right. But now that you have been created, at the end of the day, you do exist. So now that you exist, you got to plug out.
You got to plug out.
You got to plug out.
Now, why is that?
In other words, you take the red pill.
You take the red pill. Right. So I think the Torah would advise the red pill. And I'll tell you why. So I work at the University of Pennsylvania for an organization called Ma'or. And our Rebbe is the president, Rabbi Beryl Gershenfeld. And so some of the most elite, intelligent, hardworking students go there, and a lot of times through the process, there's like a moment where it's like, well, 1 second, what you're teaching me is actually, once I hear something, I'm an honest person. I'm I want to adjust to the new information. I'm one of the believers that college is the best time for a spiritual uplifting, that we should have our 20s should not be developmental downtime. They should be developmental uptime. So therefore, education should not be indoctrination. It should be education. So let's educate, So here's the question I asked them. Here's the question. Is ignorance bliss? And it's like, you think about it for a second. So these students at Penn, I got to pick the right college here, right? They didn't pick, Canton, Ohio Community College, even though it would be easier to go there. They picked to go to Wharton, to Penn, to whatever, because they want an experience that's going to push them to bring out their best self, even if it's going to be more challenging. The stress they're under, the pressure, internships, this and that and the other thing. So that's really the question. And so you can present it like this. Like before when I was in high school, I worked a lot in volunteering with special needs children, right? And I think some of the most magnificent lessons of life can be gleaned from working with these amazing, amazing children. They're called special. In English, I think it's almost like a euphemism, but in Judaism, it's not. We understand that every single person has a unique mission, has the spark of God in them to bring out their unique potential and their unique gift to the world. You with me so far?
Yeah, I think so.
You don't know where I'm going with this. Is that what the look of confusion?
I'm kind of curious.
Right. So the question is like this. I think, the happiest people in the world that I've met en masse are people that have something called Down syndrome. It's an amazing thing. So what's going on? They're very limited in their ability to understand outside of their world. At the same time, that limitation creates a pleasantness, a happiness that I think we could all envy. And I've worked with these children and with adults also, by the way, that have Down syndrome, and they're remarkable people. And the questions I ask Penn students, this is where it gets controversial, is would you prefer to be someone that has Down syndrome or not? And no one has yet say yes. And I say, well, 1 second, why not? It's less is expected of you. Your own mind limitations allow you to live a life that's much more noach, pleasant, whatever it is. It's like, they don't know what they don't know. They know that they're different than other people, but they don't have they don't have the same emotional pain that you and I go through in aspects of our lives that are very challenging. And no one has said yes. So a student understands, we understand, ignorance is not bliss. Once I've been exposed, once I've been created, so to speak, Ophir. So the theoretical question of, would it be better to not be created? Would it be better to take the blue pill? It's not real. And a human being who pines and yearns for something called reality is so powerful because God put into us the infinite soul, the infinite potential to be great, to achieve something based on who I am. So for the vast majority of people in the matrix, it could be they're never going to have this question. They'll never come on to the fact that they're in the matrix. And that is, in fact, the plot of the movie. Most people can't figure it out. So for them, great. They don't have to ever make the choice. But when presented with the choice, I believe that the concept of ignorance is bliss floats away. And even Cypher, who's like, I want to go back. You can't go back. There's no going back.
Right. Something I did notice as I was researching this topic, and it took me a while to kind of figure this out, but there are literally 3 articulations about the whole idea that ignorance is not bliss in terms of even when presented with the blue pill initially. The idea isn't take the blue pill and you'll go into the matrix. It is take the blue pill and you'll forget this ever even happened. Your knowledge of the fact that there might be something else is wiped out. Even Cypher, when he chooses, part of the deal is I don't want to remember any of this. And when Morpheus is captured and Agent Smith is talking about it, he says when he originally created this program, it was meant to be a perfect, blissful world with no problems. Right. I don't remember the exact quote is, but
I think I have it here. Do you want me to read it to you?
Yeah, please. Oh, actually, I have it too.
Oh, go ahead.
So it says, did you know that the first Matrix was designed to be a perfect human world where no one suffered, where everyone would be happy? It was a disaster. No one would accept the program. Entire crops were lost. Some believe that we lack the programming language to describe your perfect world, etc. But the idea is, wow, that's not what we want. That's not what we want. If it's too easy, it's fake. I guess it was that the lesson here, but what blew my mind was the fact that even dealing with the matrix, it was just obvious that you wouldn't want to know that your life is an illusion.
Right. And you feel that. You feel that reality. There was a positive psychologist. He actually taught his last class last semester. He was my mom's professor at Penn in the 70s, and he's still been teaching. And his name is Professor Marty Seligman. And maybe you've heard of him because Rabbi Yosef Lin is a student of his. He has this great book called Authentic Happiness. It came out in 2002, which means he was writing it before The Matrix came out. And then it was published literally right after The Matrix. Okay? Listen to this. He says like this. Suppose you could be hooked up to a hypothetical experience machine that for the rest of your life would simulate your brain and give you any positive feelings you desire.
Wow, this is written before. That's crazy. That's written before The Matrix. That's the premise of the movie. Yeah.
Most people to whom I offer this imaginary choice, says most, not all. Most people whom I offer this imaginary choice refuse the machine. Why?
Wow.
It is not just positive feelings we want. We want to be entitled to our positive feelings. We want to have earned our positive feelings. Yet, we have invested myriad shortcuts to feeling good. Drugs, chocolate, shopping, alcohol. I'm going to add things that came out after 2002. Social media, binge watching, the world of inappropriate websites. The belief that we can rely on shortcuts to happiness, shortcuts to joy, shortcuts to comfort and ecstasy, rather than be entitled and earn those feelings by the exercise of personal strength and virtues, leads to legions of people who in the middle of great wealth are starving spiritually. Positive emotions alienated from the exercise of character leads to emptiness, inauthenticity, depression, and as we age, the gnawing realization that we are fidgeting until we die.
Whoa.
The positive feeling that arises from the exercises of strength and virtue rather than from shortcuts is authentic. That is what a human being wants. Authenticity.
Well, that's so. Point is, we want the red pill. Even so, it sounds like we want the red pill. But again, just to kind of that's true. Okay, that's true. But I think most of us, especially now, kind of live in. I think hopefully for most of us live in fairly pleasant circumstances, right? Especially kind of in the Western world, in the U.S., Canada, like just to go bring it back to Cypher. Because obviously we're kind of looking at Cypher, be like, dude, you kind of failed. But he's eating gruel. He's cold.
Meaning on the ship, in the real world. Right.
Right. Cypher's in the real world. And he complains. And he's like, the reason why he was willing to strike a deal with Agent Smith and go back into the Matrix is because he's like, I'm sick of this disgusting food. I'm always cold. It's not pleasant. It's one thing to be like, okay, you can, earn pleasantness, but that's assuming you have pleasantness to earn, right? I think it is an important nuance here in terms of, okay, so you could live in a fairly pleasant world and there's some unpleasantness, or it's like you're living in like the world of the Matrix. Okay. So you're unplugged, and what are you confronted with? Cold, harsh, awful reality. I mean, does the premise still stand effectively?
Beautiful question. So let's take Dr. Seligman's words and let's then go back into the sources and see how the Torah frames this, right? His point is we crave authenticity, not comfort. We crave authenticity, not pleasantness. He's saying that if I have pleasant feelings, I want to have earned them. If I have comforts, I want to have earned them. Okay, so that brings us to, I think, to an important distinction, which is the world we're comparing this to, which is the world of Judaism, the world that the Torah lays out. There's this world that we live in now, and we're going to die, and we're going to go to something called the next world, which we know very little about. Olam haba, the eternal world, right? So Islam and Christianity have taken these concepts and distorted them. So most of our ideas tend to be Judeo-Christian at best. And at worst, we're like, 72 virgins. Like, no, that's not what's going on. The world we're headed to is not a better version of this world. It's not like, in the next world, I have a mansion. In this world, I live in a hovel. The idea here is that you're talking about confronting it is perfect because it's the authenticity that we want. The realness, which brings us to a concept we have to discuss, which is the concept of emet. What does it mean to have truth and reality in the world? And how does that play a role? And why would that be better? Now, what's interesting is when Cypher gets reinserted, I can't remember if we see what happens to him in the next ones or not, but what are the chances that someone of his caliber wakes up again? He did it before.
Right. Good question.
The simulation, because it's false, is going to push a person to wake up and go, 1 second, this isn't real. In our world, the sages call that teva, nature, which is not a biblical world. They made the world up. They made up the word. In the Chumash, in the Torah, there is no such word as teva. It doesn't exist.
Well,
it has the same gematria, numerical value, the same concept as Elohim, which is the God who creates the world as a way of hiding himself. And the sages call that, we're going to call that teva, which comes from the word matbea, which would be like a coin or a mint or an impression of something, but the mold is the reality. So you're dealing with, Rabbi Tatz has a great book called World Mask. You're dealing with a mask that's over the world that's intended for you to scratch at it until you wake up. That would be the difference between the Matrix and our world, is that God wants you to scratch at it and wake up, whereas the machines want you to stay asleep. So the analogy,
Nice. I actually like that distinction. That's a good point.
But that gnawingness, we were talking this week, right? And you said something amazing. You said, people realize when they die, they no longer care how much money they had. They no longer care how many suits they owned. My friend Moshe Friedman, who you had on the podcast, says in his beautiful song After 120, no one writes beloved CEO on their tombstone.
That's a good line. Beloved father, great, husband, like role model for the community. But
right now, what if that's not true? And the reason that people end up making changes later in life or whatever it is when they get closer to death, even if it's fake, by the way, is because someone who's into fakeness also wants people to think that they were good people, even if they weren't. So they're going to write beloved father on that tombstone either way. But the big wake up is we were not created for this world. We were created for another world.
Right. Interesting. And again, is that what you meant by like the reality shift? I mean, we were talking about like authenticity and what reality is. So it's kind of like in terms of that's fair that we're working towards the next world. But again, it's kind of when you're locked into this world. I mean, you could say like this world is reality. Like I'm touching this desk, I'm hammering on it, eating this steak, which only tastes good. So I can just say like this is real. It's authentic. I'm assuming you wouldn't want to get some like disgusting handcrafted chemical made food, but if you
I'm actually quite careful with that. I do not want some chemical made food. But that's sort of a hyper reality. There's a jump that happens. I did not grow up Torah observant, and my discoveries came later in life also. And it's almost like a full circle. I'm back to enjoying my life exactly as I thought I would when I was 10 years old. The difference is I've sort of leveled that experience up. Why am I having a beautiful steak? It's no longer a highest level B. It's no longer for me. It's because God wants me to enjoy and use this world as an expense account. If I use it as an expense account and I'm God's salesman, so to speak, so Rosh Hashanah would be my annual review, Am I going to live? Am I going to die? I want to live. Okay. So, and I want to have a big expense account. It's easier for me. And there's that word easier, noach, more pleasant for me, in my opinion, to serve God and do what is expected of me as Rick Fox when I have more money, when I have more food. I don't want to go through experiences of the Holocaust to discover God, experiences of the Holocaust to discover morality. I do not want to go that route. And we can talk about that another time if there's time in the podcast, right? I want to be in this world recognizing that it is reality in as much as God says, this is your challenge. Find meaning in putting your kids to bed, not putting in 3 more hours at the office to get 1 more client.
So what would our answer be to Cypher in terms of, so again, now we're back to Cypher and be like, look, you need to find meaning in the journey, like in what you're doing right now, in terms of what you're doing is real and the matrix is fake. I mean, that's again, kind of what Trinity tells them. Like, why do you want to get plugged in the matrix? It's fake. It's not real. And he's like, well, if it's so not real, then I just unplug this guy here and in your reality, he dies. Right. Which is, I literally was thinking about this. It's actually kind of frightening because when you see someone die, you're kind of like, whoa, but we'd be like, oh, it's okay. Like he's going to the next world. But I don't know if that would comfort most of us.
It would not. And you're not supposed to say that at Shiva houses. I lost my father about 8 years ago. It's a fascinating experience. What else am I supposed to say? Would I prefer it didn't, it's the same question. Would I prefer it didn't happen? Yes. Now that it's happened, I asked myself, well, Rick, how do you want to go through this experience? Do you want to go through it babyish, it's happening either way. And I think that's the idea of reality, which I think we need to discuss. Reality is happening either way. So since I'm faced with it, how do I want to remember myself going through it? How do I want to be remembered going through it? And having these conversations with my mother and my sister and,
So look, what would we tell Cypher? Like, it just seems like I hear the ideas, but he still has to deal with the unpleasant reality in which he finds himself. Why can't he escape? Like, why is that? It sounds like it's wrong for him to do that. I mean, like, he's free choice. He's a grown up. He's like, look, I'm an adult, and this is what I choose.
Right?
Why is that wrong? I mean, we disagree with it, but why is that it should bother us, like, and it should bother him. So why?
So let's get into the why. The why is going to have to be, the analogy is going to break down, as all analogies do. But let's try our best to do it with Cypher, okay? We'll try our best. So first of all, Neo doesn't. Neo, Trinity, and Morpheus choose not to go that route. They choose to go the noble route. Cypher doesn't have enough gas in the tank. He doesn't have enough mission-based belief, or as we would call emunah, to make this happen. Neo, Morpheus, and Trinity see a higher vision. They see, we're not just doing this so we can live in reality. We're doing this because we want to free mankind from the machines, wake everybody up, and rebuild the world. It's a much more different, it's not like we got to wake people up because, like, they're asleep, we got to wake them up. And like, we got to all tell them about, like, that's not what's happening. What's happening is the human race is being destroyed by machines. And we want to undo that wrongdoing. There's a mission that's happening. Let's also put in there that Neo and Trinity also create a romantic relationship that also would not be real if they were in the Matrix. Cypher does not have the same mission. He doesn't have the same drive because he doesn't share the value of, I'm in a position to help other people. Maybe he's too selfish. Maybe he needs a good Rebbe. Maybe Morpheus didn't put enough time to him and he was in Cheder. Maybe it was, whatever it was. But that's what's lacking. Without the long vision, and this is where really things like the Holocaust, pogroms, October 7th come in. What's going on? Why are people signing up to be in the IDF at age 45 when the IDF says, I don't want you, I don't need you? And they're like, no, I'm coming back anyway. My tour guide for my Poland trips named Zvi Sperber. It's a beautiful guy from Ramat Beit Shemesh. And he's in his 50s. And last year we were in Poland and he's like, I'm debating whether I should go back into Gaza and be a tank commander. And I was like, you're 50. The tanks have changed. He's like, no, what's the big deal? Go like this. And I'm like, are you insane? Like, what are you doing? That's this question. And do I feel a sense of mission, a sense of purpose in my life that is beyond pleasantness, beyond pleasure?
Well, yeah, that actually does totally change the conversation. The way I was thinking about it before was illusion with pleasantness in the Matrix versus harsh reality, but it's real. So the gruel you're eating is real. But you're saying it's like that's too narrow. You're like, this isn't just exchanging experiences. It's almost what you said, like what's the point of me having been released from the Matrix? There's a broader vision here.
That's exactly right. I ask a very scary question to my students on the Poland trip. We're standing in Majdanek, which is in Lublin, right there. It looks like the place could be switched back on by going by taking the on switch and like it's the scariest place.
That's scary. That's really scary.
And you're looking at this is the question. You're going to love this. They're looking at the guardhouse with the warm around it, and we're standing in the snow. And I'm like, okay, here's the question. It's 1943. You're in Lublin. Would you rather be standing here half naked, starving to death as a prisoner, going through hell? Or would you rather be in the guard tower and you're a Nazi, but you're nice and warm?
Yeah, I think I know. Look, it's easy for us to say this in like the comfort of our homes, but yeah, I don't think I would want to be a Nazi.
Right. I don't want to be a Nazi. Are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. Why are you so sure? It's very unpleasant to be what they call a halfling, to be a prisoner in Majdanek. Majdanek was the worst in some ways, right? Again, it is easy for us. I agree it's easy for us. But since it's easy for us, I think we have an extra obligation to do some soul searching and say, 1 second, I do have it so good. I wasn't born in Vienna in 1931, or 1920, like Viktor Frankl, who, by the way, developed the whole concept of meaning and living for meaning. And that's the pining, the end drive that a human being has, as opposed to Adler saying power and Freud saying pleasure. He discovered, or he presents, and hasn't been disproved yet, that deepest aspect that we want to live for is meaning, and that suffering can even have meaning because there's something broader happening. So I think because we live in the United States of America, at least I live in America, we have an obligation to really think about how much more can I do? How much more can I wake up and just not cruise through life because I happen to have it easy? That, I think, is the most important question for us.
Right. I think that definitely gives a lot more, like, it really fleshes out why what Cypher did was, let's say if he was like, look, Morpheus just plugged me back into the Matrix. Morpheus is like, yep, sure, go ahead. And like, what would be the issue? So what you're saying is, it's important to live reality because you're living with meaning. You have a purpose. Your purpose is in the world of the Matrix to free humanity from the machines. In as opposed to living alive, being in the Matrix, I kind of want to just bring it into this world for a moment. What is wrong in terms of there's reality and living a lie? Can we talk a bit more about like living a real life as opposed to living a lie? Can we like define let's define those terms?
Yeah, sure.
If we can.
Can we do so in the framework of Judaism, or we're in the framework of the Matrix?
Let's do. I think we're clear on the Matrix. So I want to get into the real world now.
Yeah. So in the Mesilas Yesharim, the guidebook for how to live in this world, Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, the Ramchal, great Kabbalist and mystic in Italy, and also in Amsterdam in the late 1700s, he has this book, Mesilas Yesharim, the path, the winding path of people who are trying to do the right thing. Let's call it that. He says like this on page 11 in the green version. Therefore, you will surely understand that no intelligent person could believe that the purpose of man's creation relates to his position in this world. No intelligent person can believe that, he says. You'll come to that conclusion. For what significance is there to man's life in this world? And is there anyone who truly happy or at peace in this world? Then he quotes King David. The days of our years among them are 70 and with strength 80. At the apex, they are filled with toil and anguish. That's from Psalm 90. Then the Ramchal continues. How many different forms of anguish and sickness and pain and burden there are? After experiencing these, there's death. 1 in 1,000 could not be found for whom the world will abound with pleasures and true peacefulness. And even such a one, if he lives to be 100, he is as good as departed and gone from the world. What's the Ramchal telling us? Well, he's hinting to his other book, a much more lofty Kabbalistic book that's going to explain, it's called Das Tavunos. They translate it as knowing God's plan, why he created the world. That God created these two worlds, this world and the next world. Ramchal is saying in Mesilas Yesharim that my job in this world, it can't be my position here. It doesn't make sense. It's too ephemeral. And what is God? Why did he create the world? What's he doing? So the axiomatic place we have to get to is we have to understand that the definition of good, tov, means to be whole and complete. That's what the Ramban says. Whole and complete. And the only true whole and complete thing in existence is God. And so our job is to try and attach ourselves to goodness, to wholeness, to completeness, because at the end of the day, God is the only thing that really exists. God is the only thing that really exists. Here's how Maimonides says it. The foundation of foundations and the pillar of wisdom is to know that there is a prime being who gives existence to everything, and everything that exists from the heavens to the earth and what lies between them has no source other than the emet, the reality of his being. The Maimonides is telling us that we only exist because of the emet, the truth of God's existence. What does this word emet mean? What does it reveal? So in English, we think that truth means not a lie.
You're saying like God is good and reality is true? Like what's...
You don't exist. We have to get into what's called the next world. What's going to happen when we die? Right? What's going to happen when we die? Putting aside judgment and this and that. Let's not talk about that. When a person dies, what remains? What remains? So we like to say, oh, old Uncle Al, he's up there bowling a 300 with a Miller Lite, watching the Eagles. Like, what the hell are you talking about? We all know that's not what Uncle Al is doing. Why are we saying that? Right? That's just not what's happening, right? At all.
Right.
What is happening? What's happening is we have to convert our existence from physical to completely non-physical.
And in the world of the Matrix, that would be by plugging out and then helping to save humanity.
For sure. Yeah, right.
In this world, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And in this world, what's our task then? We unplug. We're like, I see a reality now. I acknowledge the truth. I mean, like, what does that mean? Like, I mean, obviously we're not fighting machines. Thank God. Hopefully that'll stay. Is it going to be Terminator? Hopefully not. But in terms of like, that's not the reality right now.
So here it is, right? So this is Dostoevsky, page 17. The intellect is speaking to the soul, to the emotional world. That's what how the book works. So he says on page 17, the prime foundation upon which the entire structure stands is that the Almighty God desired that man perfect himself and all that was created for his sake. This in itself will merit him and be his reward. His merit is that he will have labored and striven to attain his perfection, which when achieved, he'll enjoy as the fruit of his labor and the prize of his toil. His reward in that he will finally have attained this perfection, he will rejoin the good for all eternity. That is how the Ramchal explains it. God designed a world that's broken because he wants you to fix yourself and it, thus by earning a place with God by being someone who creates and does good. When you get to the next world, like, here's the question, right? So make me in the next world already. Why are you putting me here? Just let me wake up in the next world, Cypher style, holding a Mai Tai on the beach. That should be the question, right? The Kabbalists explain there's something called Na'ama de Chasufa, the bread of shame. Now enters Marty Seligman. Your neshama, your soul cannot handle that. It will wake up, it will realize I didn't earn this. And it will feel disgusting for the end of time. It will feel disgusting. Why? Ultimately, because it's not real. Since God is real and is the only reality, if I'm not attached to goodness in my own right, I never truly exist. So on the worst case, I've heard it said that if you do not believe at all in any kind of afterlife, so then, what happens to you at the end of your life when you die is you just cease to exist because you never built that belief up. But if your belief system is built that I'm here in this world for a purpose and I was put in my station for a reason, so I can use my station to better myself and ultimately better the rest of the world.
I love that because that is awesome. Because the idea is like it's all about it almost sounded like before it was like all about me. Like, do I touch the reality? Like, what does that even mean?
Right.
The answer is it's twofold. In terms of there's a personal mission where you have to perfect yourself. It's like, okay, well, what if I don't want to? I mean, like, I'm perfectly fine to enjoy I'll take the steaks and the donuts or whatever the options are. But the answer is no, it's not only that. It's not, because then you could say like, what's wrong with Cypher's choice? He chooses not it's like, there's a two, again, like the Havdil, obviously to make a difference, but Cypher was like, had a selfish choice, but it's his choice to make. The answer is no, man, it's not. Because by him choosing a selfish choice, he's now ditching humanity.
That's right.
He's abrogated his responsibility. And that's a good analogy for our world. Yes, we have to work on ourselves. But the answer is you can't just, by you rejecting that responsibility, you're also letting the rest of the world fail. Because at the end of the day, there are people who are hungry. There are people who need you. There are people who you could help. And you failing yourself is actually not only like a kind of cosmic failure between you and God. It's not only about you. Of course, you should work and make yourself better, but it's not only yourself,
right.
It's also other people. That's awesome. I love it.
And the trick is once you do that, you can enjoy this world and all of its luster because now you've injected meaning and purpose into it. That's the word that we call kedusha, holiness. Kedusha and holiness means to be elevated and passionately connected to it. Right? So when I feel connected to that, so that's why on Purim I can get drunk, right? For those of us who like to get drunk, right? I can get drunk and that's actually a way that I can serve God. On a Friday night, I can have a beautiful glass of wine, have a beautiful steak, but don't forget to invite students who don't have Shabbos. Don't forget to invite guests who don't have and can share with you.
Right. And I was actually reading because I was trying to figure out like, why is cipher? Like, let's just like take the cipher out. Like, what is wrong? I was like, this kind of sounds hedonistic. What's wrong with it? First, what does hedonism even mean? From what I understand, it's kind of seeing like pleasure or pleasantness as a moral good. Whatever increases my pleasure is good. And like whatever I enjoy more. And then I was like, okay, so what are the problems with that? And they gave a really interesting example. They said, because it becomes self-defeating in terms of, if you take a like a tennis player, right? You have a guy who goes in and he just wants to enjoy. He's playing the game to enjoy it. He's probably not going to enjoy it as much as a guy who plays to win. A guy who goes into the tennis where he's like, I want to win. When he's playing, he's probably having a much better, assuming he's like playing at someone at his level, not getting completely decimated. But even then, like when you're playing to win, your goal is not to enjoy, it's to win. But you're probably enjoying the experience a lot more. And that's kind of like when you go in and when you take this world, I guess, if you will, and you're dealing with it like reality in terms of, look, I realize that this isn't the end goal, it's something else, but you'll probably end up enjoying this world too, because it's kind of like the difference I heard between having a steak on a Tuesday night and having a steak at your daughter's wedding. Same steak, totally different experience.
That's it. You said it beautifully. That's Kedusha, right? Beautiful. But I'll throw a wrench into your question though, this tennis player.
Yeah.
I'm playing to win, so should I cheat?
Oh. Well, I suspect that the idea is like when winning becomes a goal in and of itself, like in terms of everything becomes about winning, and then effectively you become like Cypher. You know what I mean?
That's the point. Like, if winning is everything and I want to win, so there's a fail safe. There's a electric box that gets triggered. What do you call it? A fuse that blows in God's world, that there are no shortcuts in spiritual matters. And you will find out when it's all said and done after we die, whether you cheated or not, you know? And the idea is, again, why is cheating bad? The answer is, forget about right, wrong. It's not real. You didn't really win.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I didn't see that coming.
You didn't really win. So I explain this analogy for Shabbat all the time. Part of my job and mission is I love exposing young people who don't have Shabbat to the beauty of Shabbat. Inevitably, they want to know, but what's with all the rules? So if it's a football guy, very easy. Do you want to play a football game with no rules? Well, what do you mean? Well, I'll watch you argue on Monday Night Football. Was it a catch? Was it not a catch? Was his foot on the line? It's like, why do you care? Just let it be a catch. No, he broke the rule. So what? Deflate gate with Tom Brady. Who cares? No, it's not against the rule. So what? The guy wanted to win. He won. What's the big deal? The answer is we inherently know not only is it wrong to cheat, it's less fun. It's less fun. What makes Shabbat so fun is the arena of Shabbat. If you're looking at the rules of Shabbat, the restrictions, if you don't look at that as the arena that I play in, Shabbat will be awful. But if you look at it as I'm trying to get to a positive, powerful, fun game that's competitive called Shabbat, the rules become part and parcel to the beauty and meaning behind it, just like you have in golf and horse racing and business. If you steal or print $10 million, you're not a good businessman. You stole or printed, and I have a guy like that I know I went to college with, whose father's business partner printed $10 million in the 80s and just put it into circulation. And that's how he became a millionaire. Do you want to hear a lecture from him about how to? No, it's not real. When someone comes to speak to Wharton, do they want to hear from a self-made billionaire, or they want to hear from the son of a billionaire?
Right. So when I was in law school, I took a private equity course. It was like I think a week long, a few days. And so the professor brought in a private equity guy who was like clearly, it was the whole private equity firm was privately owned by him and his family. And he was asked by one of the students, I can't remember what the exact question was, but like, why not cheat or take shortcuts? And I was really impressed with his reaction. Now again, but his reaction was, because it's not real. That's not fun. That's not why I'm in business. Like, you're not a real businessman if you cheat. Like, what are the rules? And obey like the laws, and then win like that. That's what winning is. This literally exactly what you said was that he articulated. It was a really interesting reaction. You think, like hundreds of millions of dollars at stake. Like, what's the big deal? He's like, I care. Like, he didn't need it for the money. He had money. He's like, if I'm going to go ahead and like make a business, I want this to be real. I want to build something real. Right. And I was really impressed by that response. It was very powerful.
So that's the analogy, and that's what God wants. I tell my students at Penn all the time, God wants you to be self-made billionaires. There is no greater joy in the world than reaping the fruits of your labor, even if it's hard, even if you fail. So the good news is that no matter what happens to you physically in life, and I mean materially when I say physically, you're successful. You're successful if you are building yourself up. Eternity is a long time. We can't have this discussion without understanding that we're building something eternal. We can't even fathom because there's no time. It's too hard to discuss, not for now. But you're 100% right that without looking at the analogy of what happens after, it's harder to get that mission right. But nonetheless, you will find today secular Israelis who are unsure about the next world, willing to die for their country, because they're living a life of meaning that they would not trade for anything. And that's what I would tell Cypher. That's what I would tell everybody on the net. It's funny they call the ship the Nebuchadnezzar. That's the craziest thing. The city's called Zion. Okay, amazing. And the ship is called by the general who destroyed Zion. Like, somebody didn't do the research. Someone didn't do the research. This is my ship, great. The Nebuchadnezzar. What? Why would you name a ship that? This is my ship, the Adolf Eichmann. What? Why would you name that your ship? It's the craziest name. Whatever. Okay.
Great. Love it.
This is what I would tell Cypher, right? There is a nobility and a purpose beyond, even with, you could take the next world out of it. There's something that gives us energy when you do the right thing, when you live the right way. And that's why he says critically, I don't want to remember a thing, but you're going to wake up again. You're going to wake up again. You're going to wake up again because, as Marty Seligman said, and we quote it, we'll say it again, positive emotion alienated from exercise of character leads to emptiness, inauthenticity, depression, and as we age, the gnawing realization that we are fidgeting until we die.
That's awesome. Rabbi, I think that's a really great wrap and great way to end this episode. Thank you so much for joining us.
My absolute pleasure, Ophir. Thank you for the opportunity. Looking forward, and we'll do it again sometime, I hope.
Yes, I hope so too. Thanks, Rabbi Rick.
My pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to the Dilemmas on Screen, a Jewish Perspective podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. If you have any suggestions for a moral dilemma you'd like analyzed, feel free to send it over. Thanks again, and see you next time.